Hello everyone, welcome to this month's edition of North Central Outdoors. I'm your host, Nathan Karch. Today we've actually got a very special guest with us. We've got the Wilson County Game Warden with us, Hunter Daniels. He is going to talk to you about waterfowl ecology, a little bit about their biology and behavior and their migratory patterns. But first I want to cover the waterfowl hunting regulations regarding the 2019-2020 season. So first off, we'll dive right into what you would need to hunt these game birds as far as licenses goes. So just as I've talked to in previous segments, there's several different options that you can go with. You can always purchase your lifetime hunting license, which I know is a very big expenditure for several people. I can't do it. You've got that. If you are a lifetime license holder, know that you're covered. All you would have to do is purchase your federal duck stamp. Those are $25. So that is an all-inclusive license that covers all the state supplemental licenses. You can also do your annual sportsman's license, which is basically the same thing as the lifetime, only it's year by year. So that will cover all the state supplemental licenses, and in addition to that, you will have to purchase the federal duck stamp. So this price is going to be about $191 with the sportsman's license, including the federal duck stamp. If you don't participate in, say, deer hunting, turkey hunting, maybe you don't hunt public land, or maybe you just waterfowl hunt and fish. Maybe you want to build your own license. And what you would have to do to hunt waterfowl is you would have to get a type 001, that is your base small game and fishing permit, and then you can build onto that. So on top of that, you would have a 005 waterfowl permit. If you are going to hunt WMA's public land, you would need a WMA small game and waterfowl permit as well, a migratory bird permit, and a federal duck stamp. So I know that that is a mouthful. That's a lot of permits just to stack on top of each other, but this does come in cheaper than the sportsman's license route. This is going to be about $161. So again, if you just hunt waterfowl and like to fish here and there, that's probably your better option. But if you think maybe you're going to go deer hunting or turkey hunting, I would go the sportsman's route because it's definitely the best bang for your buck. The next thing is the season dates. So it differs with species. Duck season and everything that I'm about to describe is going to be the statewide season, and that's going to be the open season. All these kind of have an early season as well, and they will open up for a few days and they'll close, and then they'll open up again and close, and then the statewide open season comes into effect, and it's open for much longer. So for duck, it's going to be December 7th through the end of January, so that'd be January 31st. And then geese, that's going to be December 7th through February 14th. So you just got to kind of pay attention, and there's conservation zones and then there's statewide zones. So I would recommend just going through your hunting guide and just figuring out where you're going to hunt and the special regulations that apply to that specific area. Jump into bag limits. So it's very species specific when you're covering waterfowl and game birds. So when you are talking about bag limits, there might be a bag limit for one specific bird that is 2. There might be one that's just 1, or you might be able to harvest 4. So all in all, you can harvest 6 ducks a day, but it's very species specific. So 4 mallards, no more than 2 can be female. You can do 3 scops, 2 black ducks, 1 pintail, 2 canvasbacks, 2 redheads, maybe 3 wood ducks. So just realize that it's very species specific. If you like hunting coots, we have several coots here in the Middle Tennessee area. You can do 15 coots per day. Geese, this time of year for the statewide season is 3 geese, and that's referring to Canadas. We really don't have any brants, or we get a snow goose here and there. Rosses we don't get many of, so that's pretty much strictly talking about Canadas here in the Middle Tennessee region. In the early season, you can bag 5. So again, it's species specific, and in some of the species, it's even sex specific. So whether it's regarding female or male, you've definitely got to identify your target before you shoot, because it's very important. We do realize that accidents happen, but anything that you can do to prevent that is fantastic. So hunting hours for waterfowl, that's going to be 30 minutes before legal sunrise all the way up to sunset. So big game is 30 minutes before and 30 minutes after sunset. Waterfowl is totally different. So it's the same for the sunrise, but remember it actually ends at legal sunset. So it's still going to be daylight out there, but that's when it ends. You can't harvest any birds after 30 minutes. No baiting, just like big game, you can't entice these birds in with any type of grains, whether it be soybeans, wheat, corn, and you can't even do salt. You can do that with big game. You cannot do that when it comes regarding migratory birds. So no baiting whatsoever to entice them. No electronic calls. It's just got to be from your mouth. There's no electronic vocalizations. That's a violation right there. Also, whenever you're dealing with any type of migratory birds, it's important that you know that you have to have a plug in your shotgun, and that means that your shotgun is only capable of holding 3 shells. That includes one in the chamber. So if you have a shotgun from the factory that can float one, you know, we understand, we're common sense folks, but if we check you, you should only have 3 shells in your shotgun. So just know that law applies to all migratory birds except for crows. Talking about possession limits, just jumping back to the bag limit right fast. The possession limit is 3 times the daily bag limit. So there's not many people that actually use that except for out west in the Mississippi Flyway and stuff like that, where they're just getting a tremendous amount of ducks. But here in the Middle Tennessee region, you won't usually have to worry about a possession limit. It's just the bags. There are wanton waste laws with migratory birds, unlike big game animals. So where big game animals, you could, if you're a legal license holder, you could potentially just shoot that deer and, you know, let that deer lay, which that's a big ethics issue and a big moral issue. It's not good, but it's not against the law. With migratory birds, it is against the law. So if you harvest a bird or cripple a bird, you have to make every effort possible to go retrieve that bird. We realize, you know, it might get hung up in some brush or it might get hung up in a tree, and it's not possible. We take that into consideration, but you've got to make a valid effort to go retrieve those birds. And also, when you're talking about shot regarding waterfowl, it's got to be a non-toxic shot. Most people use bismuth, tungsten, steel is probably the most popular, but it cannot be lead. So check with your federal regulations, make sure that it is a federally approved non-toxic shot. And if you're found in possession of toxic or lead shot while you're waterfowl hunting, you can be cited for that. And speaking of violations regarding waterfowl and migratory birds, since they are federally regulated, you will be found in dual violation. So any violation that you basically fall under in the state is also reciprocal with federal. So it's a double whammy and can hurt. So make sure that you're abiding by state and federal regulations when it comes to these migratory birds. I think that just about covers all the hunting regulations regarding waterfowl and game birds. We're going to turn it over to our special guest, Hunter Daniels, who is the Wilson County Game Warden. He's going to talk a little bit about some of these game birds and non-game birds, their ecology, their behavior, kind of their flight paths, when and where they can be found in the Middle Tennessee area. And so we'll just go ahead and turn it on over to him. We've got a few questions for Hunter. He is an expert in a lot of the waterfowl ecology and game birds and their behavioral patterns and a little bit of their ecology. So our first question is going to be, when do these birds migrate here and where can I find them?
Well, I don't know about an expert in waterfowl ecology, but I do know a little bit about it. So a lot of our waterfowl season is dictated by waterfowl migration. So we have a lot of residential wood ducks. They're here year-round. They breed here. They rear their broods here as well. So we have an early wood duck and teal season. One of the first waterfowl to migrate to Tennessee, migrate south, are blue-winged teal, with some occasional green-winged teal thrown in as well. So as you mentioned earlier, your bag limits will come into play on that. You can kill, at that time of the year, you can kill 2 wood ducks, or 2 wood ducks and 4 teal total, or 6 teal, or any combination of those. Again, you can't kill more than 6 ducks at a time per day. So after that, we'll have Canada goose season as well. A misnomer that a lot of people think is we have a Canada goose migration that comes down. We actually don't have a lot of Canada geese that actually migrate into Tennessee. Most of the geese that you see in Middle and East Tennessee, and even Eastern West Tennessee, are residential flocks. There's been several research studies done by Tennessee Tech University, University of Tennessee Knoxville, that have basically they do a lot of the waterfowl banding. They track their migration. They will migrate a little bit in-state, maybe just a little bit out of state. But for the most part, the geese that you see on a day-to-day basis while you're hunting or just living your daily life, those Canadas will be residential. After the wood duck and the blue-winged teal migrate in, and a lot of the times the blue-winged teal will migrate out by the end of September, well before our duck season ever comes in. We'll start seeing some of the other, a little less cold tolerable ducks start moving in, like some of the first to come in are going to be your shovelers. Again, your green-winged teal are going to start showing up a little thicker. Shovelers, followed by northern shovelers, followed by American widgeon, followed by gadwall, and then of course your mallards are going to kind of drift down as well in steady numbers. Some of the last ducks to show up, typically around January if we get a really good cold snap. You'll see your pintails start showing up. You'll start seeing your American black ducks start showing up. We don't get just a ton of American black ducks in Middle Tennessee. They're more of an East Coast duck, but East Tennessee you'll see a lot. See a lot of hunters harvest a black duck here and there. But predominantly the really cold weather, the really nasty weather ducks that start showing up are your diver species. So that's going to be your canvasbacks, lesser scop, ringneck ducks, redheads. There is a greater scop. We don't get those a lot. Those are more of a, if I'm not mistaken, a West Coast species. Sometimes we'll see a couple, but not too often. As far as your sea ducks go, your long-tail ducks, your different species of scoter. Every now and then we'll see some, especially just above the Old Hickory Dam in that bigger water, sometimes on Percy Priest. But most of the time those are a coastal duck. Those are a saltwater, brackish water duck. Only time we see those move in is when we have a big storm on the East Coast and it actually pushes them west, further inland. Or as far as the longtails go, a big storm on the Great Lakes that pushes them south. Most of the time they don't leave that type of water.
Our next question is going to be, what type of non-game species can also be viewed here in the Middle Tennessee region or within the state?
So we're actually a hotbed for a lot of shorebird migration, things like that, especially in West Tennessee where you get into those river bottoms and just that Mississippi floodplain. In the greater Nashville area more specifically, I'm sure a lot of people have seen the white pelicans start showing up. They are a non-native species. They typically did not migrate through Tennessee, but they've taken up residence in lakes like Old Hickory. You can see a lot of them on Old Hickory near Drakes Creek. They've started showing up a lot on Chickamauga Lake down towards Chattanooga, particularly, the upper end of Chickamauga. And they just kind of started out in groups of 10 or 15, and now there's a couple hundred on both lakes. Those are always really cool to see because a lot of people associate pelicans with coastal areas, with the beach and things like that. In a couple months, we'll start getting shorebirds like American avocets, things like that. The last time that I saw an American avocet in Tennessee was actually at Radnor Lake in southwestern Davidson County. Radnor Lake is an excellent, if you don't waterfowl hunt or you don't want to get out on the big water to see waterfowl, Radnor Lake is actually an excellent spot to go take the family for a nature hike, a nature walk, something like that. There's always ducks there. There's always shorebirds there. And then on up into the spring, April and May months, there's actually a lot of warbler species, a lot of your songbird species, a lot of the really brightly yellowish colored birds that are usually pretty rare to see. They're deep woods type birds. As far as wanting to see your dabblers, Again, Radnor Lake. Radnor Lake is I think is one of the best kept secrets in Nashville. A lot of people don't talk about it. A lot of people don't go there, but it's got a lot to see. It's got a lot to view.
What can you tell us about the cormorants that we're seeing all over the lakes? It seems like they are just taking over a lot of the islands. What can you tell us about those?
So cormorants are a non-game species, meaning they are not legal to hunt in the state of Tennessee. We do get a lot of questions about when are we going to open a season on cormorants. I haven't heard any speculation or anything in the works as far as allowing a cormorant season. But especially on Old Hickory, we have a ton of cormorants. They roost in large numbers, and just like any bird, they're especially bad because they're over water. But just like any bird, once they roost, their waste that they release over time kills the vegetation, and without that vegetation, those islands essentially are just blocks of dirt. Without that vegetation and those roots, it allows the current of the river and the lake to slowly over time erode those islands. So if you're out on Old Hickory in the summer and you see all these just ugly stick-ups of what's left of an island, typically what caused that was the cormorants. They roost at the end of the day in just massive numbers.
Thank you. Very, very interesting. So tell me a little bit about the Tennessee sandhill crane migrating populations.
Okay. The Tennessee sandhill cranes is something that's kind of near and dear to my heart. I'm actually from southeast Tennessee, and you could see some sandhills in Middle Tennessee, especially around Priest and things like that. But you get down towards Hiwassee and Chickamauga Lake, and there are thousands. It's something that I've grown up with, and I didn't realize until once I got to college that that's a pretty unique thing to that area, and it's honestly a fairly unique. It's a fairly unique, I guess, exhibit to the state of Tennessee. A lot of states don't have large migrating sandhill populations, and especially with Hiwassee Refuge, Uchee Refuge. That's some of their holdover grounds, their stopover as they're migrating south. I know the Tennessee Aquarium does a lot of like riverboat type tours where you can go out and see the sandhills. But pretty much if you go to pretty much any boat ramp you go to in Dayton or in Ray County or Meigs County, you have a pretty high likelihood of seeing at least 100 sandhills. They really like the mud flats once the waters draw down, but until recently, sandhills were not a game bird in Tennessee. And I think about 5 or 6 years ago, we as an agency opened a season on sandhills. It's not an open season just to everybody that buys a license. You do have to apply for a couple tags. It's a quota hunt, just like your big game and your big game deer and turkey hunts. But a lot of people call them the ribeye in the sky. They are actually fantastic table fare, and they're awesome birds. I mean, they're borderline prehistoric looking and sounding. When you have a couple hundred in flight over top of you and they start making their call, it's something that's incredibly impressive that I highly encourage anybody that is a lover of wildlife, whether you hunt or you don't, to make the day drive. It's 3 hours from Nashville. Make the day drive down to Dayton or Decatur and check out the sandhills.
Very cool. We appreciate it. Final question. So where's your go-to hunt spot?
Oh, I can't give that up.
I'm totally kidding. Well, we appreciate you being here today. That wraps up this month's edition of North Central Outdoors. We appreciate you tuning in, and have fun, get outdoors, and be safe. We'll see you next time.